we call ourselves social cinema. We call ourselves people's cinema. You can literally go onto our social channels and ask to see a movie, and if it gets enough comments and likes, we'll show it for you. You
That's
can't do that in
awesome.
any main cinema. And that's what it's about. It's about bringing the social, the community back to film.
This is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. I'm your host, Tyler Jorgensen, and today we have Gerry Cottle, who has founded one of the coolest businesses that I've seen in a while. And I see businesses every day, every week, all the time. I see, I see another cookie place or another make your own pizza place, but this is amazing. Gerry has founded RooftopCinemaClub.com, and they are taking on the entertainment space. They're taking on cinema, but not having to open these massive venues and all this and deal with all this real estate. So welcome out to the show, Gerry. We're super excited to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Pleasure to be here. Really appreciate the support. Thank you.
So you got a great accent. I think that's from Nashville, right?
That's right. Yeah, Nashville, London and Nashville. Yeah, that's the one.
Awesome. So you're over here taking over American cinema. How did you get this idea?
So to be honest, Rooftop Cinema Club is an open-air film experience, screening classic, cult, and recent film releases. But really, what for me, and open-air cinema has been around, honestly, for over 100 years. You know, the early 1900s is when you first saw, I think, Australia, some of the first kind of areas where it's seen. But for me, I wanted to, I'm born in entertainment, so I'm from a circus background, so I've always loved entertainment. When I was traveling with the circuses as a kid, I always watched, we couldn't get TV very much because we couldn't get the aerial working. It was in, a farmer's field in the middle of nowhere. Those were the days. So I'd watch a lot of film. I'd watch a lot of VHS back in those days. So I combined my love of entertainment with my love of film and to create this experience. But really, what it started for was I wanted to relive my favorite movies. So when I was young, I loved movies like Top Gun and Back to the Future and Dirty Dancing and The Goonies. They were like 87, late 80s movies. Those, I couldn't see those movies in the cinema. I was too young. So I wanted to go and see those favorite movies on the big screen. And I wanted to do it with a beer in my hand. So I literally found this rooftop in London. I put up a screen. I invited my mates around. And I started playing my my DVD collection. I don't know if they even sell those things anymore, do they? But and that's what it was. It was a passion to do great events and sharing those moments. But it really was about seeing film, seeing my favorite movies in a whole new light. Getting off the sofa, getting out, seeing them, probably for the 10th or 20th time, but in a whole new setting, brings back the magic.
It really does. It changes the experience. Seeing a movie on the big screen versus seeing and everyone watches on their phones now. So it's it's not like you're moving from a TV to the big screen. You're moving from a tiny screen to the big screen. Now there had to have been some challenges as you were, navigating this, right? Getting permission to be on roofs, making sure there was enough chairs and headphones and all these kind of things. When you pivoted from doing this as a hobby and a passion into a business, what was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome it?
So there's kind of two parts to that. And thanks for the great question. So in England, really, the biggest challenge straight away was the weather. The enemy, the weather. Let's be honest, London's not known for its weather. Many other things, but definitely not its weather. So for me, one thing was the weather. With that, it was we just had to kind of see how, we learned off the public, off members of the public, and we created this system where we put the power into the public's hands. So we screen rain or shine in the UK, not here in the States. It's slightly different. We actually cancel with any rain, but we've made sure that we created a system where people could cancel as they're coming up to the screening. We inform them of how we're going to approach the night. And so really people never felt that they were going to go to a bad experience. So that was a learning curve. It was funny because in England, when we started cancelling, people were complaining that they wanted to come, they don't mind a bit of drizzle. So we actually had to make it so the screening went on, but you had a choice to cancel. Here in the States, people, it's very important, especially in places like in LA where, the rain is a big factor because it doesn't rain very much. Here, we have a system where we monitor the weather both online on apps, but also our managers are on site and we make a call. The big thing is we make sure we give people the best experience. So we don't, if it's heavy rain, we'll definitely cancel. With a bit of drizzle, we let people know it's their choice if they want to come along. That was number one. The other big factor we had in the early days was sound. We're on a rooftop, we're in built-up areas. So open air cinema has always been, at a castle somewhere or, a special location next to a nice lake or something like that. But obviously sound wasn't such a problem. Here we had our neighbours literally next door to the venue. We're like, oh my God, we've got to keep the neighbours happy. And so I'm not joking, about 10 days before I was about to start my first cinema, The owners came along to me and they said, Gerry, we've got a problem. We don't want to upset the neighbours. You've got to use something else. And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. I'm finished. What can I do? And anyway, I thought about it and I thought, well, can I plug some headphones into a big box? And that just didn't, I thought that's going to be an absolute mess. And so I ended up getting silent disco headphones. And I put these headphones on. And the first screening I did was a screening of Stand By Me. And if you know that film, it's 89 minutes long. It's probably one of the shortest movies you can play. And the reason I did that is I thought, I don't know what people are going to think about this. And as most things, out of crisis comes opportunity, when you're doing business. And actually, at the end of the screening, people walked up and they said, I love the headphones. They're amazing. I'm in the film. The wind doesn't disturb the sound. There's no rustling sweet packets. And so what was an absolute catastrophe at the beginning became one of our USPs. And now, even if we can play amplified sound, we don't. We always use our headphones, and we're known for introducing those to the cinema world.
You're in quite a few locations. You got two locations in London. Then you're in Chicago, Fort Worth, Houston, Miami, LA, San Diego, New York. You got quite a few locations. When did you realize, okay, this is something that we're actually going to take and grow?
In the early days, I read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I really enjoyed that. And it really taught me to kind of move across different jobs, different experiences. And I went to work for some big brand names, and every time I got a job offer, I moved on. So I really sort of created this knowledge of how to run events and marketing. So I think in the first week, I did a special kind of 50% off offer. And then within a week, it just started selling out. And it started selling out, in a matter of hours. I think that was the first thing of going, okay, great. This has caught the imagination, got some really good PR for it, used my skills that I'd learned over the previous 10 years. But I suppose the moment when I really came to think maybe this could be something bigger was when in the start of the second year, American Express came to me and they said, look, our concierge service, which is where you call up and you can ask for tickets to anything, they're inundated with calls. You've got to remember, this was one venue with 150 people in London, huge, mega city. So it was really sought after. And they came and said, look, we want to sponsor you because we want to get access to your tickets. And so, that was fantastic for me to be associated with such an amazing, brand as American Express. Great for them because they're getting, special access for their customers. So that's when it really felt like, I think I'm onto something here. And we started working together, and they were our first major sponsor. And that's when I really knew there was potential for this to grow bigger and bigger. And then I just kept knocking on doors, really.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So you had one spot, 150, were you doing one screening a night? So 2 or 3 screenings a week? Or were you, at that point, were you nightly, or was it kind of a weekend thing?
No. So it started off, I think, 5 nights a week with the venue, but we literally soon boosted up to 7 nights a week. But in London, with the sun setting so late, this is another reason I can talk about it later, why we came to the States. Well, right. I love the US, but was we do one night. So we used to literally screen at maybe 20:09 in the evening by the time the sun sets. So again, a really difficult place to do outdoor cinema, but kind of the birth of this. That's the irony. It's like, never give up, always try things. So that was it really. Yeah. So we started doing one screening. It was 7 days a week, and then we ran for the whole summer. And the next summer, I added another venue in Kensington, and then from there on, we built up to 5 venues in London, and eventually, came over to New York and LA in 2015, kind of 4 years after we'd started in London. Yeah.
I love it. So I'm checking out on your site now. You've got upcoming shows. You've got Dirty Dancing and Pulp Fiction. You got Jurassic Park, La La Land. As you move from projecting your own DVDs into, probably doing things more, on the up and up. How did you navigate licensing and these kind of things? Was that hard to figure out?
Yeah, well, luckily, actually, so in the UK, it's all via one source, Film Bank. They own it, and that's all the studios together. Over in America, there's a great company called Swank we work closely with. So we built those relationships. The biggest thing for us is kind of understanding what works, and that really has been experimentation. What I love about this industry, but also is kind of my biggest bugbear, is you never know really what people are thinking. So I play films like Top Gun and you mentioned and Dirty Dancing, and they just, they've been selling for 10 years, and people still, they're just so close to people's hearts, those movies. And then sometimes I'd go on a search. I used to go out a lot and ask people, what do you want to see? We call ourselves social cinema. We call ourselves people's cinema. You can literally go onto our social channels and ask to see a movie, and if it gets enough comments and likes, we'll show it for you. You can't do that in any main cinema, and that's what it's about. It's about bringing the social and the community back to film, and we really want, we program what we think is great, And I must say, one of our biggest things that I'm proud of is our program is constantly evolving. We're always supporting diversity. We're always supporting great directors, different areas of film, because it's so important, and we've always done that. But really, where it becomes challenging is, for example, I spent ages trying to get the rights to Flight of the Navigator, which I loved as a kid. I loved that movie, and I started playing it, didn't sell. I'm like, everyone loves this movie. Some movies just, a Little Shop of Horrors never sold, and there's other movies you put on and they just live on forever. So yes, you can normally find movies that you think people are going to like, but you don't know until you play them. One thing I would say with Rooftop is, we're really about escapism. All films are about escapism, right? But with us, it's about getting there early, socializing, talking about your favorite film, then watching it on the big screen as the sun sets and the stars begin to sparkle. And that's what makes it very, very different. But yeah, there's a constant search to what people want. But there's feel-good movies that really work for us, we've found over the years. They're the ones people can really let their hair down at the end of a hard day's work. Yeah.
It's great. Now, in traditional cinema, a lot of the money is made in concessions, right?
Yeah.
So in this situation, are you guys controlling the concessions, or is this a partnership you have with the venues? How are you navigating that part of the business?
Yeah, I love you mentioned that. It just, you're right. Someone once said to me, a cinema is a glorified sweet shop. So it's like, and actually that's a very true saying. And now since I've run a cinema business, I have less issue with paying, a high amount for popcorn, because really that's where the money's made. The good news with our business model, and always happy to share, is, again, it's a variation, but we have a mix. We still pay high film rights, and so you have to do that. But because we're not playing new releases, the rate, we normally know what our margins are, so that makes a big difference. Where new releases, when they come out, they can vary from anything from 50 to I've been told 90%. I don't know if that's true, but that I think when the James Bonds come out and stuff like that, there's a variation. At least with us, we know what our percentages are. We can work on that, and then yes, food and drink is an important part, because that's really where the icing on the cake, the drinks, the alcohol, the popcorn, these sweets, that's where we make our money. But we just have a bit more knowledge. The big difference in our business model is that the studios, which we love and we work closely with, obviously, when a new release comes out, a normal cinema has to play, Fast and Furious 10 coming out next year, or Jurassic World. With us, we're not kind of dictated to about what we have to play. We take film and we say, look, guys, we think you're going to love Top Gun, and we're going to do it in this way, and we're going to have a DJ with it, and we're going to do this, a themed party afterwards. We take the movies we love and we breathe new life into them. I think really for the studios, I think it's great business. You've got to, these are films that 15 years ago weren't shown in the cinema anymore, or if you did see them, you saw them in some out of town film. We've been very lucky and proud to be able to bring them back and give them the second showing they deserve.
You're taking your experience. I didn't know that you had a background in the circus, right? But the circus isn't just the one moment in the middle of the circus, right? The main ring. There's the sideshows, and there's the other, and the smaller rings, and the whole experience comes together to make it the circus, that memorable childhood experience, right? That maybe doesn't happen as much anymore. But instead of just showing up, watching a movie, leaving, you've really transformed the whole experience into an event and bringing back that escapism into really what we need today. Exactly. I feel like that's what retail needs to have happen. And that's what a lot of the in-person commerce needs to have, is what can happen there that can only happen there. Right. And that is the social, and that is the experiential. So I think that's really, really cool. But, how are you deciding where you go next? How are you deciding? I mean, it seems like you've got quite a few locations, but there's probably a good amount of demand. How are you picking where to go?
So firstly, one of the reasons I came to the glorious United States, I spent a lot of childhood here. I love it. I used to travel with my family. We used to get a minibus, about 10 of us. We used to go to Denny's, which everyone laughs at me about. You stop up at Denny's, go around Vegas, go all around this, all over America. So I love that side of it. But really, within season 3 in England, I was stood on my rooftop one day, and I was wringing out my socks. They were that wet from the rain. And I thought, this is great. And we have our moments here, and it's still very successful and does a great job in London. And, we just, like I said, we just navigate the rain. But I thought, there's got to be more to this. And so I came to America, and the first thing we wanted to do, we actually did start New York, because we thought it's this kind of closest thing to London to test the formula. But after that, it was about going to the Sunshine State. So over to California, And now we're doing Texas. We're also in Miami, opened up in Miami. Okay, we do things like Chicago as well, and obviously they're shorter seasons. So we do both sides of the business. But the key thing for us is making sure that, I think initially, is to get those longer seasons. That's number one. So can we build our core business in the longer season? Number two, just great cities that are modern cities, from Houston all the way, even places like Fort Worth. It's got a great nightlife. It's a modern city. People are going out, they're enjoying things. They want to spend their money to do something different. We just look for cities that are bustling, have a good sense of having fun, wanting to have good restaurants, good bars, etc. Because we're part of that kind of experienced nighttime economy. Yeah.
It makes sense. So do you consider yourself a lifelong entrepreneur, or are you an entertainer turned entrepreneur?
So I've always loved business. So I grew up, even when I was at school, I was putting on parties at, when I say school, college probably is probably the best way to define it. But I was hiring nightclubs and things like that. I was always trying to, putting parties on. And then I was, getting my friends who were sword swallowers to come down and do an act on the stage. And so I got so I think, luckily, because of my upbringing, that there was always a want or need to do something different. And so even though I spent many years, in London doing marketing, PR and events and stuff like that, there was always this thirst to want to do something different and create something fun and exciting. I just knew that as soon as I started on working on Rooftop, that I'd rather work 15 hours for myself than 2 hours for someone else. And there was always that thing. So I suppose that answers the entrepreneur. Plus also my dad being a very successful businessman and touring shows and stuff, from a very young age, I'd go into his office for hours at a time, sit there reading his books, reading all the science of selling and just all these different ways. So I suppose I was very happy. I had this sense that I wanted to make sure I was educating myself before I started my business. So I definitely did that into my late 20s, but there was always a burning desire to do my own thing, if that answers your question. So I suppose lifelong.
It does, absolutely.
Yeah. That was always up. I wanted to get the education first.
Yeah. What's one business lesson that you learned from the circus that you still apply today?
Well, the big one really is, and this is something my dear dad taught me, was he used to say to me, Gerry, you can have a kettle that boils in a second. You can have one of the greatest inventions in the world, but if no one knows it's there, it doesn't matter. And I think, no one's invented a kettle that boils in a second just yet. But the point is, I think a lot of people have great ideas and they assume that because it's a great idea, then it's going to work. That's not true. There's many great ideas out there. It's about how you announce it and the awareness you create. So he was very big on that. Almost, P.T. Barnum, I think they say is America's first millionaire. He was very much that P.T. Barnum school of training, which is, you've got great ideas and make sure you find ways to communicate that to the wider audience. So he taught me a lot about promotion, awareness, having fun, not taking yourself too seriously, laughing at yourself, trying different things, taking risk, calculated risk. So that's, I think the circus is all about that, right? The circus is the original place of, the sword swallower or the bearded lady, originally all the way through to having, the fantastic acts and the animal acts and the flying trapezes. It was all about these wow factor that created something special and gave those lasting memories to, boys and girls and mums and dads. So I think the promotional side, the awareness, the not resting on your laurels was the big thing from there. And I think as we go on, also, it's show business. Things change. It was very unpredictable. So getting into business, yes, you may have a plan, but a plan is always the first casualty. Making sure you're able to be to adapt to the changing landscapes and doing it with a smile. I've always, say to my team, when things change, yes, we can look at it and go, that's unfortunate, but let's look at how we can make it better. Because while, if we're moaning about it, our competitor is finding ways to solve the problem. So we try not to moan about it for too long and get on with finding a solution. And that adaptive way of working in the circus was huge. Sometimes we get stuck in the mud. We'd have to pull all the trailers out and then we'd be late for the next round, but we had to find ways to keep going. We had to keep trucking. There was that real coming together, really making things happen against all the odds was very, very prevalent in the circus world.
I think you just hit two of the most important things about entrepreneurship that I think the two that get overlooked probably the most, which I think is really significant that those are the two that you hit on. So one, you hit on promotion, right? You said the idea, like it was your father that taught you that lesson? Yeah. And it's brilliant because there's a saying here that I hear at business schools all the time. That's, if you just invent a better mousetrap, the entire world will beat down their door to find it. And I'm like, no, they don't even know it exists.
Yeah.
Like if they don't know that you've invented the better mousetrap, no one is going to give you $1, right? You have to promote the better mousetrap, right? And so usually not the best product wins, usually the best marketing wins, right? And then the second one of adaptability. So many first round entrepreneurs think that if something doesn't work right the first time, that means it's a bad idea or a bad product, and they should just call it, and they tuck their tail between their legs and run home. But really, adaptability, the ability to pivot and adjust and listen. And my favorite thing so far of everything that you guys are doing is how you listen to the customers. Hey, you guys have said you want that movie. Like if there's enough comments, we'll do it, right? Like building your community to help enhance the product for the community. It's such a great virtuous cycle.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, start with the customer, work backwards. All these different factors we get told, but we must not forget as we go forward in business. It's that thing is that you can put things in. I try and simplify things in business. I put them into 3 pots. It's people, customers, and finance. People, obviously, great people to make sure they're building a business. Without them, you're nothing. The customers, they're your number one focus. They're paying the bills. They are, making sure they come into your product or your show or whatever you're doing. And of course, watching costs, making sure the bottom line is good so you can keep the business floating. But really, it's to your point, it's the customers are part of those key factors.
Which one of those 3, people, customers, and finance, do you find that you need the most help with, and how are you getting that support?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So I think people. I think it's there's lots of great people out there, but it's finding good people. There's lots of great people out there, but it just takes time. Obviously, lots of good people are in good places, so I think it's very hard. Customers, both really. It's just not also taking them for granted. It's constantly looking at ways to improve what you do. We're always so customer focused, from literally the research we do through our social channels to the like I said, listening to them. It's so important. I think also there is this idea that we're not approached it yet, but as brands grow, their customer base changes, and you've got to keep on top of that as well. And there's the fact that when you have a new product, very often you've got a certain customer, you've got kind of the movers and shakers get into it. But as your product gets bigger and becomes more successful, those people move around to another product. And then you have another audience that comes in, and it's how do you track that and how do you keep on top of that? It's the constant engagement with the customer to make sure you are listening to them. But yeah, that's to me, that's what I love about business. It's so unpredictable. And that's what makes it fun. It's not for I think it's not for the faint-hearted. I think a lot of people get that wrong. It's great
that's fun, for sure.
But I think everyone comes in and thinks, I want to go to the big networking events. Look, that's fine. We'll go to some networking, but I can tell you now, as my job, mostly what lands on my desk is a problem, not an invite to a show or a new event. And my job is a problem solving. I think just if you're going to get into business, make sure you've got a good support network, potentially a co-partner as well to help you out, but also understand that it's you're going to have a lot of problems to solve, and enjoy solving problems. Otherwise, you're in the wrong business. Yeah.
That's for sure. So when you got started with just a couple of ideas, but how big's your team now?
So team here about 150, got about 150.
Yeah, so what have you had to do differently as a leader with 150 team members versus when it was the first 5 or 10 of you?
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it's systems, isn't it? Systems and approaches. So making sure we have good people in good systems, so we can give feedback and get good feedback straight off. And that's number one as you start to grow. I think when you're 6 or 7, you can do it there. Just making sure you're a good listener, because I think you have a vision as well, but you've got to make sure that actually you're not the expert in everything. And I learned very young is don't have an ego. And make sure you hire people smarter than you. So I've got some strengths. I know what my strengths are, but it's making sure that I try and guide, but I make sure I listen to my team leaders, and when they've got a problem, I listen to them. I have an opinion because I've got some experience in that area.
Sure,
that's the reason where I am. But really, it's about making sure you listen to be able to grow the team. I think everyone just thinks, I'm the leader. Let's get on with this. In my way of hiring. That's so old fashioned. But I'm surprised how many people still go towards that form of leadership. We're very flat. We run this very flat. We make sure everyone has autonomy. I want to trust people. We delegate and make sure that people feel part of something instead of just a cog in the machine. That's huge. So it's growing. It's about bringing that autonomy into all areas of the business to help the team grow, help them. And I think also education has been a key factor. Knowing that there's more currencies than just pay. We make sure that funds, one of our currencies, we make sure education is part of that mentorship to help grow the different people, not just the directors or the team leaders, but also the younger members of the team. All those factors, there's so many currencies that motivate people, and just making sure you find time for those things, because I think when you're a startup, sometimes it is controlled chaos, and you are trying to pay the bills and get bums in seats, which we call it, putting bums in seats in the cinema. But you must stop and take a breath and make sure you're harnessing the creative talent that's around you and giving them what they deserve. They put their time and effort into you. Just because you pay it doesn't mean they should stay with you. You've got to give them more than that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of getting more than that and giving more than that, to me, entrepreneurship isn't the end all be all, but it's about creating the lifestyle that you want and that you love. What is one item on Gerry's personal bucket list that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Personally, in terms of what I want to do in the business? No,
not in the business. You personally.
I've got good balance since, COVID has helped me to balance myself more.
Good.
I've got a young family, and I've always, done my very best to be a good dad. I believe that being successful is about, in all areas of your life, not just, running a business. Great, I can run a business, but am I a good father? Am I a good husband, etc. Those things. With me personally, what would I like to do? Honestly, I need to make sure I take quality time for myself. Sometimes I tend to have time off, but I'm still kind of one foot in working. So I need to make sure, even though I spend quality weekends and evenings with the family, I need to have some, I know it sounds crazy, but have some actually some better holidays.
No, that's not crazy at all. That's actually super important, especially for an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I do have that. There's been times in the early days I did that, and times when we kind of hit COVID and it was, times of extreme stress, I had to kind of buckle and just put the hours in. But I want to get back to making sure there's a balance in the work-life balance. Even though obviously we're running the company, I expect that things are going to be a lot different. And that's fine. That's what I signed up for. I'm good for that.
Well, that makes sense. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this episode and this interview with Gerry. Rooftop Cinema Club. You can find them all over the socials. You can find them on the internet. And but really, if you're in one of those areas where they serve, you got to find them on a rooftop and go enjoy one of your favorite films. Bring it back to life. Gerry, thanks so much for coming out on the show. And to all of my biz ninjas, wherever you're listening, watching, streaming, or downloading, it's your turn to go out and do something.